Hey, I'm Brad Fulton. I'm ready to talk about some cards. I've done it a
Hey,
long time, and
Brad.
it's nice to talk to you today, Monet.
Nice to meet you, Brad. Nice to finally meet
Nice,
you.
nice to meet you,
So,
Magic Monet. I'm a fan of your work.
I'm such a fan of your work, actually.
Well, I
But I'm
appreciate it.
super happy to have you here because I've had these questions for such a long time, and I want to ask you everything that the community has been asking. So,
It's like a tell-all biography book with all the bads and good, right? There's got to be some
of
interesting
course,
stuff.
of
Okay,
course, yeah.
yeah, whatever you want.
So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Brad Fulton of Fulton's Playing Cards. I've been around since Dan and Dave did Smoke and Mirrors, if you can believe that. It's a long time. It's coming up on 20 years, and I make playing cards, and I love making playing cards, and I love all the experiences I've had in the playing card community. Well, I don't love all the experiences, but I like a lot of them.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a
So
long road.
you've been making playing cards for 15 years.
Longer than
Longer.
that, but yep.
Okay. So how old are you right now in 2026?
47.
So you're like one of the founders, basically.
So I love playing card history, and I love looking at people like Andrew Dougherty, who's my hero in playing cards, right? And so that's kind of the first wave to me of playing cards, where you look at the 1800s to the beginning of the new century, the 1900s, and then I say that we have kind of the next generation of playing cards, which started with David Blaine, Dan and Dave. Who was it again that did the Ghost deck?
Illusionist. Yeah.
Illusionist was there and stuff, and so I got kind of pulled into that world from Dan and Dave, who were like really pioneering, in my opinion, who were really the founding fathers of this new wave of playing card design, and then I got pulled in along with them. So I am in that era.
So just to clarify, so people from the community get to know more about you, you're not
Sure.
a cardist.
No,
You're not a magician. You just love playing cards.
no, I'm a failed filmmaker. I'm a failure as a filmmaker, and I went to USC Film School and to be a movie director. And I worked in movie stuff, and I wrote scripts, and I did on-set still photography in Hollywood, and I did a lot of portrait work, and I went to Art Center for graphic design and typography as well. So I always liked title sequences like Saul Bass did for Vertigo. And I wanted to do it all together at this and that. And then I met Dave Buck one day, and we all liked this. We liked the same stuff. We liked movie making. We liked art. We liked all this stuff. And then they wanted to make their own card deck. And I would have never in my lifetime went into playing cards if I had never met Dave while I was working in an Apple store trying to pay bills and buy like a new video camera to make movies with. And then I got sucked in, and I say that in a positive way. I really got sucked in. It was like there was an opening in the world, like a new dimension that Dave pulled me in, and then I got to combine all of my interests. So that's really, I do love playing cards, but I never aspired. I'm not like you. I'm not a talented cardist or a magician. I'm just a creative guy who got pulled in.
That's an amazing story. I actually love that story because it's like a legend. It doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Oh, it's true.
I know it is
It was
true.
it's a chance meeting, right? So Paul Thomas Anderson, a lot of his movies are about chance meetings or coincidental things. Of course, Lynch's movies are all about kind of this, fate waiting to happen, like Mulholland Drive, right? And that's kind of what it was I was just at the Apple store already. Dave walked in, didn't talk to anybody, wasn't friends. I called him the serial killer. I said like, hey, dude, that guy's like a serial killer. He doesn't talk to anyone, and he meticulously organizes all the machines. And then all of a sudden he's talking to a customer and selling $10,000 worth of G5 was the computer at the time. And then we started talking, and I told him, I'm like, hey, dude, I call you the serial killer. You're real sneaky over there. And he was cracking up. And I said, why do you have those cards in your hand? Like, what do you do with them? Are you a magic boy? And he's just he's so shy, at the time. And then I started seeing him do some cardistry stuff, which of course you would have never seen in your lifetime. I didn't even know you could do this with cards. And then he became more open with me. And then he had said that he moved to go to film school, and his dream was to go to USC Film School. And that's where I had just graduated from. And then I said, hey, cool. Can you help me make movies then? Because I'm making 3 movies right now, that I want to go to film festivals with. And he was there Johnny on the spot. Dave was there at like 10 minutes early, and I'd pick him up, and that's how it began. We never knew that we would, make playing cards. We never knew that we would make $5. We had retail jobs in a mall, and we just never gave up the dream of being creative people who made a living.
That's awesome. That's so interesting. I think you talk about playing cards like they were films.
They are to me. They are. It's like you get to be the director, the producer, and like playing cards are like the studio system. Like, Wizard of Oz was, all these great movies were made by studios. You have the Universal Monsters. You could watch movies from the 40s and 50s and they have a studio look. And I was from the Dan and Dave studio of playing card design. And we do it a little differently. We do it our way. We're not like, Theory 11 or the way that other companies did things. We had our own kind of code of ethics and things that we wanted to, communicate in design and art. But it really was like a film thing to me. Like it was like you got to be the director, the creative director, the photographer. You got to do all of it, within a deck of cards. And that's why Clip Joint, is like a film in a box is what I called it. I wanted it almost like a prop.
Yeah. So I would say, if you ask me, that you talk more like as an author more than a designer, maybe, because it's a whole thing. You're not just like designing a deck. You had a vision. You had a specific way to do things. That's awesome. So I want to ask you about something you mentioned. What is Clip Joint?
Oh, okay. Well, Clip Joint was my first playing card deck under Fulton'S. So I worked with Dan and Dave on Smoke and Mirrors. So, that was a whole nother thing. And that's what they made very famous. But I had the idea for Clip Joint for a long time. I loved 1940s Los Angeles. I had family members that lived that era of LA working in the studios. I just was always envisioning going back to that time. And so I would be driving around Los Angeles at night thinking, what was it like when my Uncle Bobby was, working there? Or like, what was it like? And I just was imagining in my head, my establishment that I had Fulton'S Clip Joint. It was this like dingy kind of dive bar place that looked good with solid oak walls and, smoke curling around cigarette smoke curling around the ceiling corners and guys maybe grifting in a game of cards, and I was the proprietor of this place. It was Fulton'S Clip Joint. And I just thought, what would the deck of cards be that was used there in 1946 Los Angeles? And then that just was kind of my dream. And with Dan and Dave, they helped me produce it. I didn't know anything of how to actually get it made. I knew how to direct it, but I didn't know how to distribute it or, I didn't know how to live stream the final product, right?
Yeah, of course. That makes sense. It's so interesting because I think Clip Joint has become like something so iconic to the playing card, to modern playing card history. It's such an amazing deck, like in design or how it feels. It's super. It's a consistent project, I believe, and I love that after that, a couple of different editions came out, and there's still something that I would love to see more from Clip Joint. Are we gonna see something from Clip Joint this year?
Well, the original idea for Clip Joint was that Dave, Dan, and I were going to make short films about a heist gone wrong at the Clip Joint. And when they came out, remember there was that little trailer. Remember that where it's like Dave and I, and then he's performing like these card, tricks for me or whatever. And I don't know if you've probably seen it, right? The old little black and white trailer. Well, then like the second part of it was a longer movie where there's like a heist that goes down and Dave's running down this alley and he's been shot. And then at the end of that movie, the cards fall out of his pocket and they go all over the alley and there's blood stains on the cards. And then the V2 was going to be a blood-stained clip joint with like a more aged box, like it had came out of the movie. That was the original kind of idea for it. And then we got sidetracked, things went on. Dave, Dan and Dave and I got busy and doing other stuff. Like we all had like side hustles, to make ends meet, to pay bills. We're like in our 20s, and then that never happened. But for the 15th anniversary of Fulton's, I have a new clip joint, like way back. Like I always thought of clip joint like a story through time. Like it was this imaginary place that had existed in, like you ever seen Back to the Future, right? How like Back to the Future 3 is the Old West, Back to the Future 2 is the 2025 or whenever it was. And then clip joint to me was like that. So for this 15th anniversary, I'm going back to like 1890. Like what was it before it was the clip joint now? So I mean, I have some cool stuff in the works that that I like. I just enjoy it.
I really hope in the future we get to see this Bloodstain edition in clip joint. That would be amazing.
I haven't thought about it until you asked me. Like you're jogging my memory now, right? Like I don't know if people would like it. I think it's kind of cool, but that was the actual original. Like, I mean, that was the plan. But plans rarely come true. I mean, if plans came true, I would just be making movies. Right now, I wouldn't be talking about playing cards. It's like you don't know what's coming next. There's always another world kind of opening to you if you're paying attention.
Okay, so for people watching, if you're into this idea of Bloodstain clip joints, please leave a comment so we get to know if you're interested. Because
if there's more than 5, I'll
interested.
make them. Yeah, if we can get 5 people. Go give out hot dogs on the corner in Chile and get me 10 people to like it, and we'll make it happen.
I will talk to 5 random people for them to comment. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you've been making cards for such a long time now, more than maybe anyone. Well, Dan and Dave.
Well, Dan and Dave are always just...
You were there, so what has changed in the last 15 years for playing cards?
Now that is a great question. It's a question also that can get you into trouble, right? So, well, it can get me into trouble, but I don't care. So the playing cards when I was young, when I was 15 years ago, there was more of a decorative or like an illustrative element to them, or there was like, I think more thought went into them. They weren't such a commodity, okay? So the market was that people would be buying a brick of playing cards. People would buy 12 because there was no telephones. They were using their cards all the time and they had to replenish their cards. Where now it became more like a collector's market. Like everything in the world has become more of a collector's market. Playing cards back then, I think, were designed to last a longer time. Like the design was more timeless, let's say, like a clip joint or, Monarchs, right? Like Monarchs came out around the same time, or after clip joint. And they're just kind of like a more illustrative deck where we went further into minimalism, not minimal design, but minimalism, where the anyone guys, the cardistry guys, they wanted more of a minimal, although Ace Fulton's to me is the original minimal cardistry deck. I do think that it moved more into a logo type where we're just now having a logo like Supreme. Anyone always reminded me of Supreme, where you just have a font that is your logo type that is, recognizable. And they did a great job of branding. Anyone was great at branding, but it's not as concept heavy. It's not as design heavy. It became much simpler and it became more about a brand, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Let's get a license of a cartoon and slap a logo on top of it, right? Mm-hmm. Like where I come from, the era where like you want to build it from the ground up, where Dan and I would be sitting there thinking, what does the Ace of Spades look like? What does the box look like? What can we do? How does that fit with the pips? How does that work? Where I think that now it's in a postmodern phase where like cinema became self-referential. So like Tarantino's movies, they make you aware that you're watching a movie. You know, they talk about, pop culture things. They talk about Madonna, these sort of things. So like I was making them more in like the 60s or 70s or, the 50s era of making, where like I was making a legitimate card deck that was a card deck in a different world. It didn't know it was a card deck. Clip joint does not know it's a card deck. It thinks that it's, in the 40s still. It doesn't know that it's a consumable product for today. But today decks we're in a postmodern period where decks are about making the deck. And everybody now is a deck designer. Everybody's making something. Kickstarter, Deck Starter, the project we did with, with Dan and Dave. Everybody now, with the advent of easy technology, where everyone has a laptop, everyone can get Adobe Illustrator and pay monthly. Everybody now thinks that they're a designer. Where when I was starting, I mean, nobody really. I mean, there was not many people. Like, we loved art. We didn't love just the idea of making money.
I think you created a concept, and you have no idea, but you created a concept, and it's fictional playing cards.
That's true.
Like clip joint, Ace Fulton's. Ace Fulton's is the base of every casino deck that came out after that, And clip joint, it's like a legend, I think everyone knows, if they've been around for a little bit, they should know what clip joint is or what Ace Fulton's is. And if you don't know Ace Fulton's, of course you know what happened after that, at least.
Well, I appreciate your enthusiasm. I really do. Well, okay, so we got an email to Dan and Dave back in like 2012, and someone said like, hey, I've been to Vegas. Like, I'm on that area. I'm searching for Ace Fulton's casino. Like, is there nothing left of it? Like, is the sign still there? Like, we used to get emails, and I used to think it was a joke, but there were people that really had thought it was a real place, which was really interesting to me, because obviously it's a fictional. I mean, like, all of my first decks were based on a fictional place because I had kind of dreamed them up. Like, I remember joking to Dan and Dave. Like, I used to always just like trash talk them and joke, like, as friends do. And I used to say, when are you guys coming to work at my casino? I'm Ace Fulton. I got the best floor in Vegas. Like, this was way before, this is before Smoke and Mirrors, but of course I'm not thinking of my own playing card deck. I mean, it was a joke that, I was Ace Fulton, this big bad, pit boss or casino owner in Vegas. And when were you guys going to come work at my casino? And we would just laugh about it, so that's kind of the beginning of that.
Yeah, I think what is beautiful about clip joint and Ace Fulton's and a lot of decks you came out with right after that is that they are really, really special decks, and design-wise, maybe like the small pips on Ace Fulton's, or like the border on Ace Fulton's, or the pips on clip joint are super spectacular. Like, they are crazy good. Like the heart, the diamond, the spade, everything. You can tell you work really hard, and it's an amazing project. So congratulations for that. Talking about Ace Fulton's, you just released a new edition of Ace Fulton's. Can you talk about that?
Oh, the bootleg?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so like many years ago, we got an email at Dan and Dave, and someone wanted me to authenticate a clip joint deck they had bought in Indonesia at a swap meet. And then I said, well, of course, there's no way it's fake, because who would waste their time, bootlegging, a clip joint deck? I mean, there's no money in it, like selling it, like that's more work to me than, just stealing it off of somewhere. I don't know. And it was fake. It was a fake clip joint deck that someone had basically copied. So like, I was always joking to Dan. I said, I'm just going to Xerox my own cards and come out with a V2. And then that never happened back then. And then, this is kind of the last of the original trilogy that I bootleg myself, where it's like a Xerox copied version of it. But this one has the back. So like we were like a day away from submitting this back design. If we can put it in here or something, or show what the bootleg looks like. It has a little kind of shape underneath the Ace Fulton's logo. And then at the last minute, Dan Buck said, no way, Ace Fulton wouldn't have that. That's distracting from the logo. So it's actually like, this is a bootleg of the really original, print of the current Ace Fultons. So, but it's bootlegged. I mean, because everybody else copied Ace Fulton. So why wouldn't I just copy myself?
That's an amazing concept. So we have Chinatown, Clip Joint, and Ace Fulton's bootleg.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
The Ace Fultons, I think, because that deck was ripped off so many times. Like, I mean, it's like everyone's inspired from something. Obviously, it's a concept based on real casino cards that had a real function, right? Like, I'm a fan of them. Dan and Dave were actually historic experts on casino playing cards. And when we would go through their old collection, I was blown away at how beautiful these cards were and how many of them they had. I mean, this was way before these things were worth tons of money. I mean, Dan and Dave are legit historians on the history of playing cards, and especially modern playing cards, like, which I would say modern meaning casino decks. But when Ace Fultons came out, I don't know. It was like, I think that, and again, I'm not, rubbing myself off. Like, I don't really care about like the accolade of it or whatever. But if you look, there's a clear delineation in playing cards before and after Ace Fulton. It was kind of the beginning move to a minimal aesthetic, and to just something that it's a logo, right? Like the Ace Fulton is a spade, like the Ace of Spades, and it's a logo, a typography logo designed to Ace Fulton's Casino. And it is the sign that would be outside. So it's kind of, I don't know, I see it in a lot of cards now. I just see it like in post and post Ace Fulton playing cards are different. And they were so popular. Like, I couldn't believe they were popular. Clip Joint was mildly popular. Like, it was more of a, like, it sold over time. It wasn't like the blockbuster release. But Ace Fultons, from the first minute they came out, it was unbelievable how many could sell.
The originals are so hard to get. Like,
really,
they're expensive. Now.
I should have kept them.
Yeah, I think I got a couple of the orange and the brown ones like last year for like $60, but that was super cheap.
Really?
Yeah, that was cheap. I've seen Midnight Fuel go for like, I don't know, $80. Not signed or anything, just regular playing cards.
Midnight Fuel was cool.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite decks is Midnight Fuel. Like, that to me, like when I hold it now, it feels like it's from 100 years ago. Like, it really is aged, and it aged well, and it looks really good now. And like, I don't think you'll ever be able to print a deck that feels like that or looks like it. Like, it is of its time. And the idea that we wrapped it in foil, like it was wrapped in that silver foil, the original run of 2,500 of them. And I don't know if they were all signed. Maybe they were like all signed. I don't know. That was my crazy idea. And then when you're actually doing this stuff, it gets really stupid. Like, no, Dan, we have to wrap everyone in this foil. Okay, we need to find someone to, it's just sometimes Dan and I and Dave and I had ideas that were really cool and then really stupid to execute.
Before we were friends, I bought a Midnight Fuel that was opened, and it was signed by Dan and Dave, and it was so expensive for me. I was in acting school, and I was like, I'm never gonna get this deck. I'm never gonna get it because it's so expensive. But I saved money and got it from a guy that, I think a guy who got it from someone else who went to Cardi's Recon and got it signed by Dan and Dave. And that was the most expensive thing I had back in the day. Like, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago, something like that. And I have it right now in my cabinet. Like, with If an Octopus Could Palm and a couple of different really highly collectible playing cards. So I love to have that. Um, so I have for my next question, I want to go back a little bit on what you were mentioning about the concept of playing cards and how you had these visions. How do you stay motivated, or do you look for inspiration in different places, different from playing cards?
Oh yeah, I think almost all of my inspiration is outside of that. I mean, I love cinema. I love art. I like going to different American cities. I love history. I don't know. I'm just saying. I probably will never run out of ideas. It's just the one thing that I was given since I've been a kid. Like whether it was making up words that were funny or I don't know. I just never really have a problem. I'm always inspired by something, like I'll just see, I'm triggered by stuff, like I'll be at a museum in Fort Worth, Texas and see this old saddle leather and I'll be like, oh, okay. And I just have an idea come to my head, or, I almost sometimes feel like I want to live in a different genre. Like life is a movie and I'm like, okay, I want to be in a Western right now, or I want to do this. And then like funeral for me, like I love the South in America, like, Memphis, Tennessee, and you're going through Arkansas and Kentucky, and I just they used to have these kind of really stately funeral homes, and there's a lot of Victorian England influence in the American South. Like it was a very wealthy place in Mississippi during the cotton trade, and they had like kind of like I don't know, but it just was a feeling I had, and I just thought like I would love to make a deck of playing cards for a funeral home. And then I thought, Dan said, "You're fucking crazy." This was like 10 years ago, and he's like, "That's fucking nuts." He's like, "Well, I wouldn't expect anything else from you, like that's a really weird idea, though." And I said,
so
"Yeah,
Dan.
but yeah, Dan loved it, but he said it was nuts." And I said, "I wonder if anyone's ever designed a deck for a funeral home." So I found actually that some funeral homes had playing card decks. Like I found one from Wisconsin. It just had like the their logo on the back. It wasn't a design. Okay. It was just kind of like a gold edge, and then a rectangle, and it just had like Wilton Funeral or something. And so I said, "Hey, dude, people actually used to give out playing cards, maybe to console people who had lost their loved ones or whatever." And I just like, so that's how that idea, it's just like this deep rabbit holes, like I want to see who's ever made a deck for a funeral home. And then I drove to Memphis and went to, all the cemeteries and all these places. And I thought, oh, okay, I could totally imagine, having a funeral home. It's in another lifetime here. I'm interested in it. So let's do that. I don't know. That's just, I just get sucked in.
It's so interesting how you come up with all these ideas. When you have an idea, what's the process? Do you try it or do you write it down first?
Oh, I write it down. Like, I mean, I used to always carry index cards. Maybe you're too young to know, but they're like those little 3x5 little cards, for like note taking. You probably grew up in a digital age, but I used to write note cards and then fold them and keep them in my pocket with a pen. I was always doing that. Now, of course, I use my iPhone and have notes, and I just write notes, and I'll like, take a photo of something or, be thinking about that. It just starts with that. And then I start playing around with it, like drawing it on paper. Like I'll be watching, something with my kids, like watching in the show, and I'll have a little notepad and I'll be sketching stuff out. And my kids will always say, "Dad, you have a new deck idea." I'm like, "How do you know?" They're like, "Yeah, we know the deal. We know what you're doing." And I'll just, sketch it out. And then if it's a good idea, it just kind of stays. I have like a million bad ideas that are like on a hard drive. Like I've designed some of them that are just stupid, or some of them in 5 years, maybe I'll think are good. I don't know. And that's just it. And I just do a lot of research. I love reading.
What's your favorite idea that didn't see the light?
I have a Googie architecture, which was like a silly 1940s, 1950s style of coffee shop in Los Angeles that started with a shop called Googie's. And it's kind of nonsensical design. And I have a deck based on like, and the files, like it's hard for me to find some of the files because like, I think it says coffee shop Brad's. I think I just wrote that down in the file. So it's like I have to look coffee shop Brad. So I'll type in my finder coffee. Oh, okay, cool. And it's a Googie designed like based on a 1940s coffee shop kind of thing, you know, and it's actually good. It's just like in pieces though. It's like it's not done. You know, it's not done, but it's like I've been pulling it out this year with the 15-year anniversary, and I kind of like it.
That's amazing. That I wish we could see that in the future.
Well, maybe you can.
Deck. I hope so.
Honestly, I have too many things that I've done, and I'm not saying they're all great. I'm very prolific, and it's very hard. Like I always tell my wife, if I'm dead in the office tomorrow, you're gonna have a hell of a time putting together anything, because this is all over the place. Like you have no idea. It is, and I'm an organized person in life, but with projects, not really, because there's so many versions I'll just do. Like I'll go through 20, 30 versions, and I have to look at the file name. Like one is submit this, you know, one is this is like project name, and then submit this, and then basically submit, no, this one is the final, you know, like, I don't know, too much going on. I have fun. I mean, but that tells you, like, I'm just having fun with it. Like I would do it if it's free. Like I just like making things.
That's so Brad. Yeah. So I have a last question for you.
Sure.
So what can we expect for this 15th anniversary? Is there something new, or is it something old coming back from the dead?
I think I have the most new stuff ever that I've ever thought of. I have like my really big thing that I have 3 really big things that I've like spent the last year making for this. And one of them is like in the final stages, but it's inspired by what made me like cards. So like I collected cards as a kid. I'm not going to tell you what I collected, because this is a Fulton'S version of something that I collected, and it's a deck, and I'm doing it with Brian Romero, who's one of my favorite illustrators, like painters. He's an unbelievable guy, and we're working on it. He's, you know, finishing it out, and it's like that's a cool one. And when that comes out, I want to do. I would love to talk to you again and tell you all the little things I put in it. But that's one where I said, if this loses every dime I've ever made, I just don't care. Like I'm just doing it. It's 15 years. That's a big thing to me, and it's like where my inspiration came from with collecting cards. Licensed wise, like I'm not really going after that many new licenses, but I did land. Like Dan and I both have like a bucket list, like of people we want to work with, you know, and a lot of them are just never going to happen. But I did land one of the top like bucket list people for this year. That'll be out at the end of the year. That is one of my favorite things that I go to sleep dreaming about. And then I have the 15th anniversary of Clip Joint. So something back from the dead, but better than ever. When I showed Dan Phillips, you know, who illustrated the original Clip Joint, I showed him the new one, and he said, it's like Clip Joint is all growed up now and went to college. He said. He said it looks like, you know, he's all grown up now.
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Okay, so to finish this, do you have something you want to say to our viewers, our first viewers?
I love people that are into playing cards. I was always into fringe things like horror movie conventions or skateboarding, like always kind of not super mainstream things. And like when I go to Cardistry Con or something, like there's always really cool people who don't like your regular stuff. You know, they're different. Like I have met so many cool people being in the playing card world, like you, Josh Collins, Kelsey, David Wills. Like, I mean, the list goes on and on. I've met like so many freaking cool people that, you know, were either customers of mine or just I met them at a convention or, you know, whatever. So like I like everyone that I've met like that. So I just want to thank you, basically. I mean, it's cool. It's cool that people are still into unique products that are made by a person, not a giant machine that just keeps cranking on and stamping the world with shit.
That's so rad. Once again,
It is. It's there's very few of us left though, like that are really, really like it is like just a person, like you have Dan and Dave, never changed. Me, you have a couple of us left that are just, we really love what we're doing and we love making the things for other people, to see. And that, so I just want to say thanks to everybody. That's really it.
that's great. That's actually a beautiful thing that you are able to thank the community, the playing card community,
Yeah.
after 15 years. So
Yeah, and people have come and gone, like, so the people who were buying Ace Fulton's 15 years ago, a lot of them aren't. Now, Josh Collins, who still buys stuff from me, he showed me his receipt from the Dan and Dave store on like Black Friday, November of 2011. And it was his order for like 24 clip joints. Because he asked me, do you remember when clip joint came out? And I said, I have no clue. And he said, I might have a receipt. I can help you find that. And I could not believe it, And so a lot of people are gone. Like, they got married, had kids, or just lost interest, and that's fine. But I mean, I really got to meet a lot of cool people.
That's amazing. Brad, thank you so much for taking the time to have this interview.
Thanks for your interest. Thanks for your interest.
Of course, yeah. Well, I really hope we can meet again in the future to show different things that you have to say. I know you have a lot of things to say, so see you then.
Bye, Monet. Thank you very much.